All right, we are now live streaming here at Red or Green Books on our Red or Green Books Facebook page. Very, very excited to have our author talk for the month of May book club in 2024. We have the one and only KMA. Kimberly Anderson is in the room, and her beautiful book, Do I Look African Enough? It is a stunning, stunning book, really heartfelt. Yes, I'm so excited and honored to have been on this journey with you to watch this book come to fruition. I had met Kimberly on Instagram when we had taken The Word Is Right onto IG during COVID. And I was just so blown away by her when she said she did not have a book. I was like, oh my God, like we got to fix that. And I'm so blessed that she found a home here for her book. And now from that has come so many other things, right? So she's part of Tesoro, which is the worldwide women's organization we're a part of. Firesingers.com is the website. She's had her book won the 2022 Best Indie Book Award for Poetry. Amongst countless other international authors. And of course, Kimberly is from South Africa. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself, about her book, what you can experience in the book, about her life. She has just welcomed a new member into her family. So I'll let her share the good, joyful news about that. And then we'll go into a full features set for her, up to 30 minutes. And then at the end, we'll come back. We'll do a little Q&A. Anyone who's in the room is welcome to ask questions. And Kimberly, of course, is welcome to not answer. Just because someone asks a question does not mean you're going to receive an answer. So she can say no. She has full power to say, no, I'm not going to answer that. And that is valid. That is okay. We won't force her to answer anything she doesn't want to answer. But of course, we'll be discussing a lot of awesome things about her and her book and her journey through becoming published. So, Kimberly, why don't you tell folks a little bit about you, the book, all that good stuff?
Well, greetings, sanibonani kunjani, dumelang likai. Welcome back to myself because I know I've been quiet for a long time, and when you go quiet as a writer, it's either you're writing, you're going through things which is lifing, or you're pregnant, which was what I was. So that I was very much pregnant. So I took a very long rest and enjoying the lifing and the changes and the process, and also the writing that goes on as well. And I realized also that we do a lot of writing in our minds more than anything else. And it was difficult to even try and get some of the words out. But it's been such an honor. There's so much that's been happening since the book. There's so many opportunities, there's so many doors, which is why I still up to this point encourage a lot of writers to get their thoughts out there, to get their words out there, because as Marissa had mentioned, we met during a live stream, which was not intentional. I was I was worried. I'm like, where did this woman come from? Why is she so excited? I'm not even excited about my poetry as she is. I'm like, what? But she did something which was give hope, and I thought I was a hopeful person and inspirational person, but I did lose hope along the way. And as writers, we do lose hope. So my journey was a journey of a lot of hope and a lot of faith and a lot of trusting the process, because I know as writers, we talk about trusting the process, and with everything, with every poem, with every word that was put into the book, the process that Marissa even went through with me with the book, everything was not just straightforward. It was difficult. It was challenging. I was difficult. I was challenging, from the cover to the words to everything else. But I'm so grateful that we are here. And it all led to this road, to this point in time.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's like the hope, you talk about hope a lot. Flexing people's belief muscles is what I say we do here at the press, right? We flex your belief muscles. I think if people wait till they're ready to put a book out, it's kind of like waiting to have kids. You're never ever going to be ready. Even if you think you're ready, you're not ready. You don't know what you don't know yet, right? It's a whole
Yeah.
process putting a book like this together. But Kimberly read the best poem I had heard in 2021. I was like, this is the best poem I heard all year. And in 2022, she had a book, right? I was just like, the amount of trust and, just to take the jump, to take the leap, to do something like this is huge. But to be guided along the way and to know that you're not alone, right? So the Debut Poets launches a group. And now we got to think 2 years later now, we have the 2024 Debut Poets happening, and we're on track to publish our 1 millionth word. So like your book, your words, the legacy of this is part of the stepping stones. And there are other Tesoro women, at least two now being launched this year. We have Kelly Mary McAllister and the poet Rose Gold. So two more Tesoro women, right, are now having their books come through. We have 10 total current
Yes.
active titles of women who've been published in Tesoro. So it's an incredible thing I think that we're doing. And certainly you're a huge part of the foundation that has allowed other women and other poets and other poets of color to be able to come in and have their book published. I want to read a few of her reviews for you. We had our 707 show this morning on IG, and AJ and I were talking about you, and he's like, yeah, I wrote the review for her. And I was like, oh yeah, you did. So he says, in America, every day I dream of home. Maybe this is home, a home I have never known. Maybe my parents never met. Their parents never knew. Home, soil, dirt. I believe these etchings from the soul of an African poet were meant for me, just me. There is grace in the movement of her pen, in the words she ripped from the bones gifted her. There are blessings in every piece shared across the ocean. Maybe her pen is the home my soul has been reaching for. Thank you, poet. And AJ Houston wrote that review for this incredible book. This month, you can get a copy of her book for only $10. So you get the $5 coupon. The coupon code is enough. And you got to go to Red or Green Books to do that. If you want to read more about Kimberly, you want to read more about the poets that we have here, the books we have here, go to the website. You can read all the reviews on the website. You can read Kimberly's bio as well on the website. I'll read it today as we introduce her and her book. So what you like, we'll do the Q&A and stuff after, but what you got going on in the poetry world? What is coming up for you? How can people find you, follow you, support you, all of that stuff?
Well, as I said, I had taken a big break from the poetry world, from the poetry community, which is it's very difficult. I know the words come out so easily when we say, "Oh, I'm just taking a break," but it's very difficult when you are a person that's always been tried to be very active within the poetry community, not just on an online perspective, but also physically. So we have a lot of things that are still going on physically. We still have projects. And I'm fortunate enough to have started some projects with some people that could continue to run with the projects while I went on and had my beautiful son. So right now, I'm still trying to get back into the groove of where to from here because there's these projects that we have running with the community. We have the online projects, but that's not where it needs to end. And there's been other projects that I've always dared to want to do, but I never did because I felt like I needed people to do them with me. And my wonderful husband always said, I don't need specific people to do them with me. He's like, just go and do it. And I'm like, no, I need someone to be there. And he's like, no, you don't. Just go ahead and do it. So that's what this year is about. This year is the go ahead and do it year for a lot of projects. So there are a lot of community projects and poetry projects that I'm gonna be heading and starting that will probably also go under a business now, because I realized that the informal way, it's fun, but there has to be a formal way when you're doing it on a bigger scale. And also when we want to bring the international bridge between social media and who we have here. So that is the whole the whole plan for this year. More will come out as the year progresses, and I mean as the year goes on. I have been doing a lot of performances still. I stopped in towards close to the end of last year. I was trying to push even into this year. I'm glad I didn't, because I was close to giving birth to the last one I was supposed to have. So I haven't been doing any performances. But the nice part, I've also realized that in Johannesburg, we still have a problem where you still have to fight to prove who you are on um a artsy level, or I don't even want to say on a poetry level, because poetry wise you can prove yourself, but then there's still this other thing that you have where you need to, okay, people need to know you in certain spaces in order to have you, and so on and so forth. So we're still going through, there's still a problem when it comes to being on certain platforms within Johannesburg. And the whole aim with connecting with specific people is we're trying to break that down, because like my good friend Ashley Moyo, who is no longer in South Africa, but Ashley knows exactly what I'm talking about when we talk about there's certain barriers that we need to break within South Africa when it comes to the poetry community and the arts community, because everyone wants to sound the same, sing the same song, and we're all singing Kumbaya, but at the same time, we all have these wonderful differences. And just because I choose to write about, am I colored enough? And I question those things, it caused a little bit of a problem with some people. So this year we're working on changing how the perception is of it by bringing it more to the table when it comes to those uncomfortable conversations of why does it make you feel uncomfortable that I'm questioning my Africanness or my mixedness or my coloredness and all those nice things. So this year, expect some new shows to be launched on social media. I will be back with some new shows, some podcasts. I will be back in studio recording music and poetry as well. That is the most exciting part. I love that part. There's a lot I have recorded and that's been waiting and sitting in the archives that needs to be mixed and mastered. So it also I have was releasing some stuff. It's on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook as well, where it's Kimberly KMA. You can find it as Kimberly KMA. Everywhere it's Kimberly KMA. I love that KMA is specifically goes with it, because there's no Kimberly KMA in the world. So
There certainly is not anyone like you, for sure. Absolutely.
even if you when you Google my book, that's the wonderful part as well. When you Google my book, you will find this book on Google and you will find it on the Red or Green Books website. You just Google, Do I Look African Enough? By Kimberly KMA, and you will find it as well. So everything that I'm getting involved in and everything that I'm getting ready to do will be all on social media. If you follow me on Instagram, just check my stories constantly. Inbox me as well, because I'm always open to doing features and collaborations with artists wherever you are, because that's how it started. This is where it started for me, was collaborating with artists from Zambia and from the US and meeting Marissa on IG Live. So, so we fully going right back into that, because that's where it started. So that's where we got to go back to build up some friendships and make some new friends as well.
It was funny, like you and S and Maureen and Christy, like we all met around the same time, and then y'all launched books together, right? So it's a lot of fun to watch these women come into their own their own power, their own books, become authors. And then now, of course, years later, we get to now talk about, wow, look at you got a third baby, and you're doing all this awesome stuff. And Poetry Africa is becoming this huge movement. And we do have spots at The Word Is Right. So if you want to collaborate, and cross platform different programs, let me know, because I would love to be able to do that. If you would like to, it doesn't, it's on whatever time you want it to be, but we have slots where we don't have shows on certain days. So we're totally looking to fill in the gaps. So if you ever want to do a program or a show or a workshop or whatever,
Oh,
bring
yes.
that to Word Is Right. I would love to do that, because I absolutely believe in everything that we're doing is just so much fun. And it's so necessary, right? And now that the baby's out and you
Yeah.
got your body back, you can we can start going back to work. All right. But
We're
it's
almost there. Almost there.
I remember getting my body back. It was a celebration. But yes, so we it's all right. Y'all feel some sort of way. All right. So Do I Look African Enough by Kimberly KMA Anderson is available on the website. Go to redorgreenbooks.com, read READ. I'm going to go ahead and read the review by the one and only Diane Murray Ward. And she is another Tesoro woman who wrote a beautiful review for Kimberly. And then we'll have Kimberly go into her set. We'll come back and do a little Q&A. So you'll get some nuggets of knowledge and information from her. So don't go anywhere. If you're tuning in to the live, please make sure that you save it. We'll be uploading this to our YouTube channel eventually, so you can pull and go back and rewatch all of the book club videos. Each month on the third Sunday, there's a new author. All right. If you want to know what we're reading, read this. If you can manage real-time truths, pick this up. If you want to remain in denial, still buy this book. If you think this might be banned and therefore worthy enough to leave in your will, consider this an investment. So much her story repeats itself. Ms. Anderson is a South African poet describing the beautifully genetically mosaic us, ignorantly maligned and marginalized in many places worldwide. Why do some fear the bright personifications of rainbows? Assess your merit, your biases, your vision, and labeling. Ms. Anderson reveals her life and others within this book of truths. Be advised, this is a quote-laden book. For some, their lessons are just beginning, and this first-hand resource will aid them if they dare to journey with her. And that is the review by Diane Murray Ward. I'm going to go ahead and welcome up our featured reader this month for May 2024, the one and only Kimberly KMA Anderson. Woo!
Absolutely amazing. I still can't get over those reviews. I still blush. I'm always still lost for words. I I always still get lost for words because I still can't believe it is so. It every day this book looks at me on the shelf and I'm like, okay, we're here. This is what we did. This is what we've achieved. And yeah, I'm gonna get into the first piece, right? And this was the piece that helped birth the writer, the fearless writer that came with the the title of KMA. And that was entitled The Colored Girl's Tale. And we'll talk a little bit about that after the piece, and we'll what we'll do is, for the first time, I think I'll dissect this piece a little bit. We'll go a little bit into depth with this piece, and I'll give more of a broader understanding of what certain phrases and certain lines meant, because it's that deep. So let's go there today. A Colored Girl's Tale. I am not white, and neither am I black. Even though my taste of men has always been darker than my fair skin, my eyes are brown and my hair curly but not straight. Pushed between the two races, my face was the one that they created. You see, my nose is too round and my ears, they're too pointy. And the language I'm supposed to understand sounds so foreign to me, so they give off this blank look when Afrikaans is thrown at me, leaving them to try and add up the maths as to how, what, and why. You see, I'm just your untypical colored chick. And a swear word is the furthest thing in my dictionary, and straightening my hair seemed to have gotten lost somewhere in history. I'm not a Masakan chick. I'm more like a Saubo Nagunjani type of chick. I'm not a colored girl on the edge. I'm more like the quiet one in the corner with my nose in a book, hoping to go unseen in case you might make that mistake and put me on your stereotypical plate. You see, it's worse when they see me with my kids. That look of confusion, tied up in all those unanswered questions, and just to show them I can hear their very thoughts, I give them that smile, like you'll be okay. You see, I don't understand what I am, but I've learned to embrace my pap and tribe eating, big thighs, brown eyes, bushy hair, round nose, Zulu speaking Afrikaans, rejecting self, and I just love how my story has people puzzling for days. I've been called Mlungu, bushy, and coy. I'm neither one of these things. I am a mixed race beauty. You see, my ancestors got killed for looking like me. From village to village, they came. On horses, they rode, trying to get rid of what they called a crime. And while some are born the right color, with the right hair strand, got to pass the pencil test, the bonus was that they embraced the language forced upon them centuries later. And here I am, not fitting in, but proud to stand out. You see, they say we have no culture. And I have never found that offensive because, unlike society, I and we could go and create our own. They say we walk around with stockings on our heads, have babies as teenagers from 2 or 3 baby daddies, drink black label, fight with beer bottles and okapis, never finish high school or go to university. Can you stop putting me in all your colored girls are going to hit you with pots and pans box? Can you? I love hearing you talk about me in a taxi or saying umuhle with hope of me not understanding. But what I cherish more is that look on your face when I reply with that one question always asked, upumapi, where do you come from? I could go on to tell you about how I come from the small farming town in Zululand, how I stole sugarcane as a kid, how I ran around with no shoes, my skin burned from the African sun, and this brown dog followed me at all times without a leash. Ngipume eshowe. And I am not your typical colored chick. Now, that um that was definitely like a coming out piece, because as a South African in South Africa, as a person of color in South Africa, to be a colored, and I know some people take offense to the term colored on an international scale, because of the way it was used and the way it was phrased. But unfortunately, in South Africa, I'm still labeled as a colored. Even though I'm a person of color, I'm mixed with many, many things. I'm mixed with German, I'm mixed with Xhosa, we're mixed with Zulu, and a few other nice things in between. You know, my mom is my complexion with these really hazel brown eyes, and her hair is really nappy, as people would say. And then I've got this thick curly hair at times, but then sometimes it just doesn't want to cooperate. And then sometimes I make that joke where I say, okay, probably the English blood and the African blood are fighting each other along the way somewhere, you know. But that's the beauty of who we are. Right. And that's the beauty of how I was raised, is to be proud of being a mixed race child in South Africa. So now in the neighborhood that I came from, there was not a thing of like, okay, she's colored, he's black, that's white, this is Indian. We don't never really had Asian kids in our school and so on and so forth. We had one, and he stood out like a sore thumb because our community wasn't built that way. And this came to be a problem when I moved to a bigger city. Now, I mentioned my hometown in here, Esho. Esho is a very small town. Uh, Nothing really affects you in a small town except for gossip. So, so I didn't know being colored was a problem to some people, especially being a colored child that played with a lot of black children. I didn't know it was a problem in South Africa. Nobody told me that, and when I moved to places like Durban, which is a huge city, um, I realized that there's colored communities and there's Indian communities, there's white communities. Yes, my little community had that. We knew white people stayed in a certain place, people stayed in a specific place, but where I grew up, the colored and the black community were more tight knit. So when I moved to a bigger city, I realized I was just colored. I was not colored and black. I was not colored and mixed with something else. I was just colored. And there was a perception of what it meant to be just this colored. There was something wrong with my speech, as per some people's ideology and understanding of what being a colored female was. And some people questioned me because my first job was retail. I think many of us, our first jobs were retail. But the interesting part was I had to deal with some clients. I worked in a jewelry store. You see now, Marissa, I'm going deep. I worked in a jewelry store. That was my first job. And I had people come up to me and they would ask, what kind of a colored are you? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, which part of Durban do you come from? I'm like, why? They're like, no, the way you speak. Like your English is good. I'm like, why? Do we not speak good English? Like, what's wrong with, is there something? Like, I didn't know. I didn't know there was something different about my speech. I didn't know there was something about the difference in the way I drank, in the way I carried myself. And I'm not saying this to diminish or speak down on the color community, but I say this because there is a certain label that we are sold as in South Africa as being a colored female. You are known to be somebody that overdrinks or drinks to excess. You are known to be a loose woman. You have this label of be having 101 kids, which is in this piece. I have this there's this idea that we are very violent women. You can hit a guy with a bottle. I mentioned the okapi. Okapi is a specific knife. It's what is it showing, like a commando knife? Something of that sort. It does all these funny tricks and twists and turns. So there's always that thing of saying, yeah, you date a colored chick, she's gonna do something, she's gonna unalive you or something of that sort. There's always something bad quotes or bad energy attached to being with a colored female from a colored community. And this piece really attacks that. So someone from home, meaning someone from specifically South Africa, understands this a lot because I've met so many people that laugh at me because I can't speak Afrikaans. And Afrikaans is apparently a language I'm supposed to know. And I do not speak Afrikaans. So I got people, Marissa, coming up to me and they just start going in like, boy, imagine someone coming up to you and they just start speaking a language that, you don't understand. And I'm like, okay, I can understand you as far as a certain point. And then after that, what they say is, it goes too deep in conversation. And then after a while, I'm like, sorry, sir, I can't understand what you're saying, or I'm lost. And I've had people look at me and be like, what kind of a colored are you? Like disgusted because they were confused. And they're like, but I thought you were from, I thought this was your language. I'm like, no, it's not my language. And there's a better chance of me speaking more Zulu and even now learning other languages of like Xhosa and Tswana and other languages here in Johannesburg than Zulu, I mean, than Afrikaans. But this piece tackles a lot of that. It tackles a lot of uh, things that we grow up with, that as an adult, you start figuring out that it's okay for me to be different. It's fine being the colored chick that is going to be the different one or the one that people don't expect us to be, because there's a lot of other colored girls like me out here in the world. So this is how the question of do I look African enough was born, because I asked myself, first things first, am I colored enough? Because apartheid gave us many quotes and terms before they even got to colored. You know, black was always black, Indian was always Indian, white was always white. But for the colored people in South Africa, if you go and you Google it, we were labeled, I think, 3 or 4 times before they finally got to the term colored, because they didn't know how to marginalize or put everybody in this one term that's gonna fit. You know, even when they would do the census, on our census, and I'll leave it with this one, but our census, when they would do the census of checking how many kids in the classroom are white, Indian, black, so on and so forth, on there would say white, black, Indian, Asian, and other. And I was other. We were other. Colored people, mixed race people in South Africa, we were other. And for a long time, we were other before they put colored on that piece of paper. And it was very unfortunate, and still quite unfortunate, that not everyone wants to talk about this, have the conversation without getting into this ugly debate. Because as I say, some don't want to be called colored, some want to be called colored, some don't mind it like myself. It opens up doors for conversation and education. So that was a colored girl's tale. And when you see me, call me African. uh, I'll read the piece. We'll talk 5 minutes about it and we'll keep moving, because this was for on an international scale. Marissa, just before I met you, there was this dude that had live streamed, and we were on his live stream, and he says, "Where you from?" Because he said good afternoon and I said good morning. And I was like, oh, he's like, oh, you from the UK? I'm like, no, I'm from South Africa. And he's like, Africa, Africa. And the sarcastic part of me, well, now I'm sure everyone can see on social media that South Africans are savage, because we're getting exposed in a lot of people's comments. If you go and check what South Africans are doing, it's terrible. But a part of me wanted to say no, you know, Africa light. But I was like, yes, Africa, Africa. And he's like, wow, really? And he looked at me, and yeah, it wasn't nice. So anyway, I realized all this time I wasn't even African. I started questioning myself. So anyway, this was when I wrote, when you see me, call me African. I got black friends, and I have friends that are black and white, so what? As if that statement is going to justify that look you give us when you walk in, that you don't belong here, or why are you even here kind of look, that order one drink, sit in the corner, don't touch the jukebox or the pool table kind of look, go, and if you do, I ain't touching shit kind of look, just because your candy coated skin says dirty. Or that don't stand behind me at an ATM kind of look. Because maybe, just maybe, you might have a vision of the past of where our ancestors got dragged by nooses, led to the slaughterhouse, and yours called that humane. Perhaps it's the I need to fill the ratio of black to white to Indian or other in the workplace. So work hard and get paid less than you are worth. And if you have a problem, then leave. You would save me the trouble of finding a reason to fire you anyway. You see, the fact that you need to say, I got black friends, has me wondering why in the heck you even had to say that. You see, I'm sure my ancestors didn't say, I have white friends when they were imprisoned. You see, the past will never be repeated. But you have found ways of using the past for your gain. You stole the land for us to buy it back. And when we move into the house next to you, you feel eager to move out. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you are uncomfortable at times. If it makes you uncomfortable at times, it is never my intention, but I assure you I will never magically disappear nor avoid you, tuck my head in the sand, nor allow my silence to have me fading into the wallpaper in the corner. But not one of the ones whose blood was spilled for my freedom will be dead in vain. And even though I'm free to go where I please and sit where I want to, your actions tell me that you are not free. I mean, from your 1948 mindset. To think of it, your forefathers had my people thinking that me dating a black guy was seen as some parts as still looked at as a crime. See, and though those lines are now crossed, we still stand by the words of the great Solomon Kalusha Mahlangu. Tell my people that I love them and that they must continue the fight, and my blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. Aluta continua. Enough blood was spilt, enough tears shed and graves dug, enough bullets fired and premature deaths, enough of whites only toilets, especially since life has shut on us all, enough of being described by ethnicity, black, white, Indian, and other. So call me brave. Call me love. Call me faith. Call me hope. Call me a longing for freedom that surpasses all limitations in your mind and mine. Call me African. And even when the sight of what racial category I might fall into confuses you, I guess that is why every piece of paper we fill in, there's always that ethnicity box, and somehow I feel the urge to create my own. Better yet, would it not make sense for me to tick them all? Just so I can see the confusion in your face when I choose not to take the name that you give me. I mean, the name that you give us. See, I remember my eldest daughter coming home from school in tears, saying that the kids at her school called her black. She picked up a black crayon and placed it upon her skin with tears in her eyes and said, "But it's not the same color as my skin, Mummy." And then picked up a brown crayon and said, "See, baby, you're brown. And brown is the color of the leaves in autumn, the tree trunks and the soil in which it finds nourishment." You see, maybe, just maybe, you thought color categorization would somehow make you feel like white was superior, as if that is the real color of your skin. You see, my daughter looked at me. She looked at me and said, "Mommy, what color are you?" And I said, "Peach." Peach, baby. One of the most seldomly used colors by a child, because unlike your mind that holds limitations in the eyes of a child, no color is more superior. And regardless of how inferior you might want to make us feel with your derogatory remarks, only made out of fear. Fear that we might one day reclaim our birthright. So in the heat of calling us kafir and busman and so on and so forth, don't forget to call us African. And yeah. There was a lot in that one. Um, a lot of personal experience, personal things that we went through, because I've had some people come up to us and sometimes speak broken English to my girls, because my girls, one of them is quite fair, like me. Actually quite more like Marissa. So I have some white people that look at us very strangely because she's quite fair and her hair strand is more straighter, so she almost looks white, but you see some of her features and you start questioning a lot. And my eldest daughter is a little bit darker. So we have people that look at us and they're like, they look at my husband, they look at they try and do the maths. And it confuses some people, because even with having my son, which was the biggest joke of all, because he was born with blonde hair. Now imagine, Marissa, this baby with blonde hair, and his hair is spiky, and and he's very fair as well. And I go into the nursery, and the nurse says, "I was waiting to see who's the white mother of this baby. Is the dad white?" And I'm like, "No, my husband is not white. He's mixed race, he's colored like me." So it has up to, I mean, this book, we released this book how long ago? And a few years later, we're still going through the same thing. We're still going through the same thing. And what I explained to her was, being a person of color or being mixed and having kids is like a lucky packet. You know, lucky packets back in the day when we were kids, you never knew what you're gonna get in that thing. You know, you just open it up and you just hope for the best. You know, nowadays they have them in pink and they have them in blue. But I mean, when we were kids, they never had them in pink and had them in blue. You would sometimes, maybe you're getting a boy's toy and that would be fine. You know, maybe you're getting a girl's toy and you're lucky. But that's what it means to have a kid as a mixed race person. You might have a fair child, you might have a dark child, you might have a child like me, a son that came out with blonde hair, and everyone in the hospital is trying to wait for, the white blonde lady to come through the door, and nobody's coming. It's just me. And that's the beauty of having to write these pieces of call me African, because being called Busman, as I wrote here, and the term Kafir, which are both derogatory terms, you don't call people that in South Africa at all. You don't call a black person that, you don't call a colored person that, but some people think that it's okay to call all people of color Busman or so on and so forth, but it's a derogatory term. And these are things that up to now, 2024, some people are still getting educated about. And I'm proud to have written a book that will outlive me. And when I say this, I mean that a lot of these pieces that people will come across will have still be conversation pieces. And as much as at some point someone tried to attack my writing and say that it's not poetry or it's not this or it's not that, and even with this book, when Marissa came around, it was a thing of trying to prove to myself more than anything else is that you are a good writer. And this book is filled with performance pieces. It's filled with beautifully penned pieces. It's filled with, I remember one girl from Russia on Clubhouse once saying, "Oh, you have good English." And even with that, yeah, Marissa, my face was also like that when I said it. But even the way she typed it, her English was so off. She couldn't even type it properly in that good English. And I was like, huh, what did you say? Because her English was broken in the text. And she had to type it again. Oh, your English is quite well. Because she heard me perform one of my pieces after the book was published. And it made me realize that it wasn't just a local problem. It was an international problem where people were assuming the wrong things about Africa and about African people and about people that come from where we come from, that come from not just saying coming from Africa, but also come from poverty, because I don't talk about it. Never really spoke about it much, but I also come from a single parent household. I come from that I want to say the typical thing, but I don't want to say it that way. But I come from that broken home. I come from a home where my father was on substance abuse. My parents couldn't stay together. They had gotten divorced. I come from a situation where everything was working against me and not for me. And this is the result, though, of having to fight a lot of other things besides just tackling ethnicity. And the beautiful part of this is that it doesn't just relate to me, but it related on an international platform to people on the other side of the globe, like Mr. AJ and a few others who I've met through Marissa and others, which awesome, awesome, awesome people. But having people that have been writing longer than I've been born, come and start reading some of my pieces and get to really dissect them and can relate from the other side of the globe has me understanding that we're onto something here that could be a change for history. Because when we continue to write about our stories, whether it be mental, emotional, whether it be loss, you're telling a story that could help save someone. They could be changing something. As I say, these books are gonna outlive us. Marissa, I still have your book here and I still go through it. It's gonna outlive us. My children will find these books even after I leave this earth, and they'll hold on to them. I know out of all my three kids, one of them, or if not more of them, will cherish it because that is what we're trying to build. We're trying to build something greater than poetry, greater than the communities that we're in. So when you see Marissa also all over on social media, she's doing something bigger than her, way bigger than her, with all the publishing, with all the running around. And I pray God give her more energy. I wish there were more of her. Uh, I could have 10 of her. But I'm just gonna read those two because I really wanted us to go into it and also talk about some of the background of why some of those pieces were written. And also just that is just a taste of a lot that's inside the book. Because I mean there's also poems like Dolly House, which is also my story of molestation. But in South Africa, our community played around with that thing too much and said, oh, the kids are just playing Dolly House. They're just playing mommy and daddy, making it like such an innocent thing, but it's not an innocent thing because you become this 30-year-old and you start wondering why when something happens to your kid or why when a boy touches your kid in a specific way, it sets you completely off. And you're like, why did that trigger me? It triggered you because something happened. And that's something I also talk about in the book. We talk about abuse. There's trigger warnings. Thank God for Marissa because she did say, let's put a trigger warning notice there. So my mom read the book, and I handed it over to Marissa after this. But when my mom read the book, she cried and she called me and she says, okay, I'm not even halfway through, but I'm crying. I'm like, okay, why are you crying? Because this book was exposing a lot about me, uh, a lot about my community, a lot about my background, a lot about our history, uh, and beautiful experiences. A stroll through the streets of Josie is a wonderful, poem. And I really want to have a whole book telling a story just based on the streets of Josie, because that's how much it opens up that door. But when she read it and she said, when she was reading it and she called me to say that she's crying, she's like, no, I'm not crying just because I'm proud of you. Excuse me. But she cried because of the words. And to have your parent, read your poetry and to say, I'm crying because of the words. And my mom didn't cry much. I'm still scared of that woman up to this day. But I mean, she cried because of the words, because they meant something to her. And that is what we want our poetry to continue to do. So also other writers that are coming out and that are getting ready to publish with Marissa, and any other self-publishing or whatever route you decided to take, but at some point or another, just don't forget your words. Publish with someone as well that understands your words, that understands the meaning behind your words, and is not going to change things or change the narrative because it's uncomfortable for society, and it's a message that society doesn't want to hear, or it's a book that might be banned. I know there's some pieces in my book that get me into trouble, and that's fine. So yeah, thanks so much, Marissa.
I was taking so many notes while you were reading today, but I definitely want to say and welcome Stacy Dyson's in the house, our fearless, brave leader from the Women of Tesoro. This book, when I read your manuscripts, I was in tears. I've read a lot of manuscripts over the years, and this is one of the manuscripts that it totally gutted me in the most profound way when I read it. I already knew you were incredible because I had heard you, I had met you, I'd experienced you. So I already knew you were incredible, but there was a lot of things I did not know about you. You do talk about so many personal things in this book, right? Things that I can relate to, things that I know other women. We were meeting, we all had all made friends at the same time together, had been talking about, right? So when you and S and Maureen and Christy, and when we all launched that year, there's just so many similarities amongst these brave women that there's no surprise to me that Tesoro opened their arms and welcomed you all in to become part of that organization, just because of the caliber and the quality of the work, but then also the really authentic heartfelt nature of the story. And I'm so glad that you talked a lot about South Africa and the dynamics of living in South Africa, of being colored, of being how the current climate, if you will, the effects of the apartheid, how that has affected language, and really a continual segregation, if you will, and borders and boundaries between groups of people in this current world we're living in. And it's really important to talk about those things. So though a lot of that is in this book, and then some really deep felt, honest, self-reflective conversation in this book about your growing up. And then as a mom, right? How does that affect you as a mom moving forward? And that's where really we say generational trauma goes to die, right? When we start talking about these things. So we're not passing it on to our young ones. And you're so brave and you're so courageous. You're certainly someone who I esteem greatly and I look up to since the moment I met you. And I'm so glad that we get to be moms on this journey, right? We get to be moms and women and poets and artists, but we get to be women, and that's such an incredible thing. So if you would like to get Kimberly's book, you can get it this month. It will help us continue supporting the publication and the production of this book. It'll help us continue supporting the other artists who are coming up now. And we got work to get you stateside. We got to work to get you here. That is a huge, thing that will be the next big thing. We got to get baby going and all of that good stuff. And, let's first things first, right? But we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be here. The book is really, it is life changing. Diane Murray Ward was very true about that. This is a book you would leave in your will. So get a copy of it. You can get the $5 coupon code enough if you go to the website and check that out. Next month, we have Dark Muse Chronicles with Torrin B., who is a new author. He's from Tennessee. There's a lot of artwork in his book as well. So, each month, make sure you're coming and enjoying and participating in these author talks. So I love to do the Q&A at the end of this. What is one of your most favorite things about this book coming to life? What was something like you enjoyed the most?
Holding it in my hands. That was because the challenge it was to even get this into South Africa. It was terrible because it was sitting at customs for almost a month. I could get it to. So I think the most amazing part was getting to finally hold the book in my hands because, as I mentioned, like coming from our background, not many good things happen. When you come from a rough, not many good things happen. So when the good things do happen, you appreciate them a whole lot. So it was still like a dream. Everything was still like a bubble. Like, yeah, the book is, it was, yeah, okay, yeah, we're happy. And then reality kicked in when it got there and I opened that box. And I was like, oh wow, I'm getting to hold it and I'm smelling it, you know. It was the most, and then Marissa had this cute little note inside as well. Exactly, that is exactly what I was doing. Thank goodness I was at home alone that day when I fetched the box. So I had just a me moment of taking it in because I knew if my kids were at home, they were going to look at me like I'm weird and something is definitely wrong. So that was the best moment, was just feel like, oh, it's me, it's mine, it's here. That was the best moment.
And you mentioned like your mom, called you crying. She was in tears. A lot of times poets, we're going to let the Zoom user in. I'll keep a sharp eye on them, make sure. In fact, I'm going to do a mute all real quick, and then I'll invite you to a mute. Hang on. Okay. And that way we'll make sure the room does not interrupt us. But yeah, Kimberly, you can unmute if you would like. Let's see if that works. Okay, perfect. Hi, Zoom user. Welcome to our author talk today. So one of the things you talked about, Kimberly, was that your mom called you crying. A lot of poets and a lot of artists, a lot of writers feel like if they, oh, hi Blitz, welcome. Good thing I muted you then, because your mic's always hot, sir. So you had talked about your mom calling you crying, and so many poets feel really um like awkward, and like I don't want my family to know, or I don't know how my family's going to react. I feel there's a lot of the shame factor, right, when you're talking about trauma, and how, being concerned about how people are going to receive your book. um do you have advice? And I baby's up, and that's okay. If baby's loud, don't worry, it's fine. It's all part of being a mom. uh but what, like, how was that for you? How would you encourage, or how would you talk someone through the process of choosing to talk about things in their book that are highly sensitive? Like, has there been healing? Has that helped bridge the relationship with you and your mother? How do you expect your children to receive this as they get older? All of that good stuff.
It did help, because when I started writing, I was a hot mess. I'm not even gonna lie. I was a hot mess, and I think that is most of us when we start writing. And I was just learning how to speak and express myself. And that was the beauty behind poetry. I was starting to write about depression and anxiety because I was having anxiety attacks, and I was having severe anxiety attacks, where at work it was getting a bit hectic on how to cope. I had panic attacks in front of my parents, and they didn't know some of it was a result of them and certain things that I'd gone through with them. So when I started writing, I started speaking. And I always spoke a lot, but I didn't talk about how I was feeling, the real things. It's easy to talk, and just have a normal conversation with people, but it's another thing to talk about your feelings, especially in a household of color, and also a very Pentecostal household, and all of that stuff. There was a lot that was working against me, miss. It was tough. It was rough because I was writing pieces about how one of my one of my most deepest pieces was a piece entitled Suffocating, because I talk about like demons coming at me and all that stuff. And now, because of the community and the household I was brought into, um you don't talk about those things. You get sent for either some serious prayer or a serious beating. I don't know which one might come first, but chances are you're gonna get both. And that is the door that poetry opened. Poetry opened a door that, even when we were going through a lot with, even within my marriage, and I was writing about a lot that we were also going through with that, because it was affecting everything. And then I just became like this volcano that started erupting on everyone. I started telling my mom everything about how I felt about everything. I was like, I'm never going to be silent ever again, because I would be writing pieces while I'd be having anxiety attacks, and they would help. Writing would help calm me down. It was like that's my like a center, a point of contact that would just help calm me. And there was also staying up all night. I think it drove my husband crazy at some point, where I wouldn't sleep. I suffered with bad insomnia. I would be sleeping at, 5 in the morning, and I'm up at 6, you know, and but now I enjoy sleep more than anything else. But writing, first is writing about my feelings. And at the beginning, I thought writing was just such a selfish thing, but I loved it because it was something that was just for me. But at the same time, I realized that it wasn't just for me. It was, I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Your camera is kind of frozen, so
Can you
you could
still
turn
hear
your
me okay?
camera off and
Okay.
on again, or your video off and on again. This should fix it. But yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a thing of starting to express how I felt, and it became like my real come out. It was like a coming out party. Poetry was like my coming out. It was the best thing that ever happened, because it was just like I could express myself, And nobody can tell me anything. And nobody can tell me to take back those words because they're on paper. And I just don't care what you have to. Like, I started having that attitude where it's like, I don't care. I really don't care. This is how I feel. This is how Kimberly feels, and she don't care. Like, I started having attitude with it. But that was the best thing that happened for me because the anxiety attacks started getting fewer and fewer. The depression started getting better. I know a lot of people always say, you never get over depression, which is true. You never. There's always things that come along the way that try and get you to go back to that mindset, but you got to keep fighting your way out. And that was what poetry was. So after writing about my feelings and expressing myself to my mom and even my father, because I had a piece and I still have a piece towards my dad, which was basically saying, I forgive you anyway. For not being there, I forgive you. For not being there to protect me, not being there for my first time I scraped my knee, my first day of school, I forgive you. And that's what poetry did. I cried when I wrote that piece, and the year I wrote the piece, I finally summed up the courage to eventually call him. And that wasn't the next day. It wasn't like months afterwards, almost a year after I wrote the piece. I was like, okay, I'm going to call him and I'm going to tell him that I forgive him. And I phoned him and I said, I forgive you. And I'm not talking about this happened like 10 years ago. This happened 5 years ago. It did. It's recent. And then he still wasn't sorry. And I understood that with poetry and also just being a human being, that sometimes, yes, there'll be people that will hurt you. And yes, I'm letting my feelings out here, and it's so nice and it's bridging the gap. Some people don't like it, some people like it. I could care less. But at the same time, after a few years, my dad finally got to that point where he was like, oh, okay, I did do something wrong. And he apologized. And he called me up randomly and he said, I apologize. And I cried because I was like, oh, I didn't ever think that apology is gonna come. But at the same time, there's some people that have hurt me, that have never ever apologized. And I know they'll never apologize because some of them even passed away and they'd never apologize, never admit that they were wrong. But poetry helped me understand that I can still find a way of healing, even if they don't care about how I felt. And that was how, even with this book, if I never started with that, genuinely going and starting to write about the depression and the demons and the anxiety, because I was like, I feel like depression is like this demon that's sitting on my chest. Because when you're having an anxiety attack, you feel like something's literally choking you, and you can't control your thoughts are just all over the show. And um when I eventually told my mom that I was like depressed after writing about all those pieces after like 2.5 years, and I was like, I think I'm depressed. And that was only a result of writing. So the same went for now when she finally found the book, and the book was paved off of the foundation of having to had to start with cracking open Pandora's box with me and with my family. And I remember even saying, if you want to know how I feel about you or how I felt about how you did that to me, you find it on my Facebook page. Like I was so I had attitude. It was called Turning Pain into Power. It's
Yes.
still on Facebook up to this day. That was the Facebook page name, Turning Pain into Power. And that journey opened up the door to where we are now, especially with this book. And you're right, as a writer, I don't want to say the person's name, but recently there was someone that mentioned their child started writing and they found the child's writing to be very dark and they were worried. And for me, I was like, oh, that's normal. It's fine. There's nothing to be scared about. And some people would be like, what the heck? I say it's nothing to be scared about because I know when I started writing, I had to write about all those dark things because that is how I was feeling. And I love the fact that it helped me understand who I was. It brought me to a point of finding my identity, which was in the book, and writing about the things that I wanted to write about, and also bridging the gap of speaking to my mom more confidently because my mom is a powerhouse. And to speak to my mom, you got to speak with your chest. And if you understand what that means, it means you have to speak with confidence. So that's what poetry birthed for me, was to not be a wimp at some point and also had to speak with my chest and be like, okay, I got something to say. Even if I gotta speak from the door and you standing in the kitchen, mommy, I have something to say.
I love that. Speak
So
with your chest. That's like
yeah.
that's such a profound concept, as well. Um, I remember those days, right, when your voice was this fledgling seedling and you were kind of coming into your own and really hadn't unpacked yet all of this, and were even apprehensive or intimidated at first about sharing all this stuff. And then, coming up with having platforms popping up, like The Word is Right, Red or Green Books, Tesoro, having these platforms pop up where women can feel brave enough and courageous enough to dig down and pull out these stories and go through them and share them and talk about them, to getting to the point where you're like, I just don't care. I'm going to put all of this out there. You've always been an incredibly authentic human being. And that courage has certainly laid the foundation for many of the women who have now come through the doors and have their own books, have been able to reflect on their own trauma, their own past, their own history, their communities, and be able to be courageous enough to write about it and share. It's a very difficult thing. You make it look so easy now, right? Because you've been doing this a while now. You make it look easy. It's not an easy thing
Yep.
uh, for you to do that. I'm wondering, like, we have all these poets coming up, right? We have this wonderful foundation, this great infrastructure for publishing books and launching stories. What would you advise? Like, what is some good rules of thumb, or some knowledge, some advice you could pass on to the next poets who are looking to be published, get published, do a book, perform a poem, all of that good stuff?
Be comfortable firstly. If you're gonna start performing, um, get to a point firstly where you're comfortable with being exposed. If you're not ready to be exposed, don't go there. Keep it to yourself, keep practicing in front of the mirror, which is something that I did for a long time. But I say that because sometimes and I love that Miss Stacy is here because I've one thing I've learned a lot now is that yes, you can come across and be fortunate like me and meet some really good people within the poetry and the arts community. But then you can also come across some really scary people that are going to stamp you down. And that's something that I went through in the beginning with a friend of mine. And there was more than one of us. And some even stopped writing and they didn't come back to poetry. And my one other friend, I think I'm very happy that he and I held each other accountable. And we said, no, 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 we're going to continue doing this. And we would give each other prompts almost every day. So we would hold on to the writer inside of us. So even after we finished, let out all our demons, there was still a thing of we had to continue writing. Okay, after that, what happens? So my advice would be ensure that you are around the right people firstly, and also prepare yourself that even though you might think you are around the right people, that some of them might do questionable things that make you want to question your friendships with them and such and so on. But when you're around the right ones, like now I have my tribe, I have the right people. I don't wanna, it's not that I don't need new friends, but at the same time, we've all been burnt. Every person in here can attest to that. We don't talk about these things publicly, but on a private scale, boy, we can. I'm sure we can talk for hours, Miss Stacy, about how we've burnt our fingers, our toes, and other areas that we probably don't want to talk about with this poetry community. But once you find the right people that are there to encourage you and help with your growth, without ulterior motives and so on and so forth, stick with those people. As much as you might not like that they are challenging you in your writing, they will help you in the long run. Um, and I'd start with that because, as I say, I was part of more than one community, and we weren't treated quite well. We questioned ourselves as writers. We were told that we needed to speak a better speak better English, or we needed to write in a better English. And we started writing, we started understanding, no, man, writers are not made, writers are born, so it, like, I started getting very upset with that because I was like, we born and we grow. You go through the toddler phase and you grow and you keep growing. So that's the beautiful part of poetry. And once you find those people for yourself and you get more confident, stick with them. Be free to talk to at least one or two people. You don't have to have 10 people. Just one or two people in your corner is fine. And don't have people that are going to look at your pieces and just say, oh, that's nice. That's good. Oh, that's nice. That's good. No, have people around you that at least one person mustn't be a poet. Have one that's not a writer. Like I had my youngest sister. She's not a writer, but she looked at my pieces and she would be so honest it would hurt. It hurt me. It was offensive, but I loved it because she would say, no, I feel like you could bring out more emotion here, and it would challenge me. So those are the type of people you should have around you before jumping to the point of saying, okay, now I feel like I'm comfortable enough to have a book. Because once you reach the level of, okay, I have a book, it also opens up another door because there's also other people that are like, oh, okay, so you have this book, and they're still going to question you again of how good enough you are for this book. You find yourself on platforms where you still have to prove that you're good enough again. And it's painful because number one, as a female of color, number two, as a female on a whole, the arts community is rough on us. We have to constantly prove our level of intelligence. And also, as an African woman, I had to prove that I was even good enough to even be here and rub shoulders with specific people. And also, as I say, sometimes you got to pull away from some people. We had to pull away from some big prominent people with big names, people that were on big platforms and have performed in front of people I've never, big platforms, but their hearts were so terrible. And their attitudes were worse. And you got to also make that decision of, do I want to be around the glitz and the glamour all the time? Or am I going to really be like the people's poet? Am I going to be a Shakespeare? Am I going to be a Wordsworth? What, I asked myself that. That was always my thing for me when I looked at the history of poetry. I was like, okay, who do I want to be here? Wordsworth he wasn't your popular guy. He was like the poor people's poet. They called him the people's poet, but what they were trying to say was he was just for poor people. Because of how he wrote for the simple folk. But Shakespeare was, for everyone that was higher upper class. That's why he made it into our schools and our literature. But I'm grateful for the tribe of poets that I have with Tesoro, and a few of the other people that I know, but Tesoro is the only it's the only group that I'm affiliated with. I'm not affiliated with anybody else because, as we say, we've burnt our fingers and our toes. We don't call those groups out, but before you go and engage with those groups, find your Marissas, find your Stacy Dysons, find your people that are going to be honest with you and tell you, no, they just out to use you. No, they gonna help you, or whatever the case is. Please find your people because we were used and abused. And not, as I say again, not many people talk about this before you even get to the writing part, because this will help pave the foundation of you being a writer and your confidence, because you'll be able to stand on a stage and really stand on business and not care if anybody really knows your name or not, but they're going to remember your words. And that was happening with me a lot, especially recently, when I performed here locally. And I performed on a big platform, and they threw me on a stage in the corner. But I think I'm very thankful that all the hard work of standing in front of the mirror, excuse me, and performing some of these pieces in front of the mirror and imagining I'm standing in front of a crowd, um, I had, because of the stage presence and the work that I put into even performing pieces, because there's a difference between just writing your pieces and performing them. And that's again another conversation, and we don't have the time for that. But it should be a door that needs to be open, because I also realized what this journey was, there's pen poets, very good pen poets, and there's good performance poets. And you also have to fall into which category. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be a performance poet, or are you going to just be a good pen poet? And I met a lot of people that are just good pen poets, but performance wise, they cannot perform a piece. And it's sad that we don't really talk about this, because we'll all just be like, oh, that's beautiful. Yes, we're saying the words are beautiful, but performance wise, no, that was not beautiful. It needed something, and I did that. Stacey says, I had my people that would do that. They would say, no, 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 go back and say that line and just put a pause there and, leave it for theatrics and drag it. I had my people that would do that for me and help me with
But just
making
speak with
pieces,
your chest,
performance
right?
pieces.
Yeah, speak with your chest.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And having some pieces and understanding, no, this is just a good uh piece that should be read. Sometimes there is genuinely just a nice piece to be read. But sometimes there's pieces like when he said he wanted all of me, that is one of my best performance pieces. I love it, show it. He said, But I love it. You know why he's saying Because when I perform that piece, I love when he's with me, because people come up to him afterwards, because it's a piece based on a toxic woman. But when I do that and I perform that piece and I fully perform it with my body and everything, they come up to him and they say, oh my guy, I feel so sorry for you, because they're convinced that I'm that toxic woman that puts him through hell. And he eats it up. They'll be like, do you need us to buy you a drink? Are you okay?
As
And
you're rocking
he,
your baby, I'm like, I want to rock the baby. I want to smell his head.
oh,
There's something I'm just like, I want to rock the baby too. I wish we were neighbors. Like, I really do wish we were neighbors. And it's so true what you talk about, right? When I met Kimberly, it was the beginning of COVID, and we were all online, and we were just bringing the word is right to Instagram, and we had already published poets at Red or Green Books, so we had the publishing part of stuff. But the word is right was the performing arts platform, and so the word is right was where poets were able to start to hone their skills on turning a page into a performance. Because it's very true, right? We may be really great wordsmiths but can't perform a poem or don't have the skills. It's a totally different set of skills and discipline to be able to be a performing artist. But to start the word is right, give that as a tool for all of these poets to come and start to practice and get feedback and get better and get stronger. And then now look at her. She's this whole force of nature. Kimberly is she's a whole woman, she's a whole package, and her girls and now her son are very lucky to have her as their role model for this life. I cannot wait in like 10 years um to, if your kids are reading poetry, like I cannot wait to hear them and how you crafted. I mean, not even in 10, your youngest is 9, right? So, or your oldest is 9, and so so like, for real, maybe like in just a couple of years, we may be seeing some work coming out of the little humans that we're growing, right? But to be able to see this legacy work, right? We always talk about the publishing house here as being legacy work is the heart work behind what we do. And so when you watch these poets now build their families and watch their families grow, you know that they have this very strong foundation. And I'm just honored and blessed to have you be part of this community, Kimberly. I know Stacy is honored and proud to have you as well in Tesoro. She's still working on liking the fact that I'm there, but that's all right. I'll grow on her when she comes out here. I love you, Stacy. I miss you. You need to come back and stay in my house. All right. So if you have not got your copy of Do I Look African Enough by Kimberly KMA Anderson, please do so. You can go to the website, redorgreenbooks.com, go to the shop, check it out in your cart, type the coupon code ENOUGH, ENOUGH, and that will get you the $5 off for her book. If you're international and you would like us to ship the book internationally, just email me, Marissa at redorgreenbooks.com, and I'll get you a quote for that international shipping fee. You can find us at tesorofiersingers.com. Myself, of course, Teresa Gallion is in the room as well. She's my mama. She's a poet here in Albuquerque, and the lovely Stacy Dyson, of course, is at the helm of that organization. Next month, we have Torrin V and his beautiful book, The Dark Muse Chronicles, which is also an art book, black and white art on gloss paper. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal book. He is part of the 2024 Debut Poets launch. And then if let me see real quick, I'll tell you, everyone who is signed up between now and the end of the year, we have Edward Galt and his book Airhead, Quinn Collard and Shatter Me with Dawn, Laura Lila, Becoming Forever Changing Leaves, Zachary Sakati, another Albuquerque poet, with his book Eves. The poet Rose Gold will be in November. Her book is Poetry is a Love Language. But first, let me tell you something. And December, we have Diosa X with her book Felices Fiestas, which is a wonderful holiday parody book. And of course, the last two poets I mentioned are part of Tesoro. So we have a lot of fun things coming up. We have the debut poets happening this summer. 10, possibly 11 poets will be launching their debut books in one collection and one full launch. And then we have 4 other books coming out between now and the end of the year. Very, very excited. Lots of things happening. Our goal is to get to 1 million words this year, to publish 1 million words. So hopefully that will happen. If not, we got lots of work to do still, and we'll be publishing for the foreseeable future. Very, very excited to begin to bridge into children's literature next year, and to be continuing our gun violence initiative. We will also be starting a brand new initiative for survivors as well. So keep your ears to the ground. Stay tuned. Follow us: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We're just not on Twitter, but all of these videos will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Both The Word Is Right and Red or Green Books. Follow us, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff that helps us continue to move everything forward and get all of these incredible authors into different spotlights. You can go back and watch past author talks from book club. And if you're interested in publishing a book, if that's something you want to discuss, feel free to just email me, Marissa at redorgreenbooks.com, or go to the website and fill out a contact form, and I'll be in touch with you. We don't publish everyone. It is a process, but I definitely want to make sure we're continuing to open doors, especially for poets who've never been published before. Stacy, did you have anything? If you wanted, I can invite you to unmute if you have anything you would want to announce as we close the book club today.
Nothing springs to mind at this particular moment. I'm sure when I hit New Mexico in 2 weeks, you and I will have something to talk about.
Yes, I need to know specifically when you're coming, because I was thinking about going to Phoenix, not this weekend, but next. And so if you're taking the train, then I can always just meet you in Phoenix and just drive you home. And then, we'll call it kidnapping, but not really.
I will give you all the salient details at some other point in time.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
But I did want to tell Kimberly, honey, I'm so sorry that I missed your actual performance. Time zones and fatigue. That's all I can tell you. But I'm sure I know you were brilliant, because you always are.
Here, and Kimberly, I will go. I forgot that I did a mute all because we had a bunch of folks coming in the room. But yeah, Kimberly, do you have anything you want to add as we close today? Any last minute comments?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you again to, for Miss Stacy as well, even though I know you missed it. but you didn't miss much. We were just doing a little talking. You know how it is. Thank you to everyone that also took the time to watch live as well as be on here, as well as get to the point that we are at again. Marissa is a real godsend. If you come in contact with her and she's willing to publish your book, take this woman serious, please, because she takes what she does seriously. So take her advice seriously, work well with her, and listen to what she has to say, and the advice that she brings along the way as well. And yeah, I just want to close off with that.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's been an honor and a blessing to get to know you, to publish your book, to watch your beautiful family grow. It's been an honor to become part of Tesoro. And I'm so excited for the next wave of poets, the next wave of people we're inviting to Tesoro. I'm so excited for the growth. Thank you so much, everyone who came to the room to support Kimberly. Thank you, everyone online who's watching. For those of you who might be watching this after the fact, only in the month of May can you get this book for $5 off. It's only $10 plus shipping and handling. You got to do it. If you buy any book, you got to buy this book. All right. I love you all so much. Thank you. We'll see you back here the third Sunday of the month in June with Torrin V and his book, Dark Muse Chronicles. Kimberly, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here all the way from South Africa. Kiss that baby. Oh my God, I want to kiss that baby. And I will see all you beautiful people next time, okay? Mwah. Bye, everyone. Thank you.